Okay, we are live now. I'm going to share the screen, and we'll just get this up while we're talking here. We have Week 12 already started. Chicago leading Green Bay.
Nice. Look at that.
Nearing the half, 17-10. We'll see what Rodgers has to say about that with 45 seconds left in the second quarter here with the ball at the 41 or so, 42. All right, so we're here to review Week 11, look ahead to Week 12, and it was a good, busy week. A lot of good action out there. Let's start with what happened last week, and we'll go to. Let's see here. I got this up here. The Week 11 scoreboard is there. So the Thursday night game was Arizona-Seattle. Seattle won 33-14. Seattle led this one wire to wire. Hyde Carson ran their way through the Arizona defense, combined for 116 yards on 21 carries and a score. And as usual, the Seattle defense does what it does, held Arizona 264 yards, one of the best defenses in the league so far. So Seattle stays undefeated. The remaining schedule is under 500 in terms of their winning record, the record of their opponents going forward. So we could see another undefeated team in the USFFL. There's a chance. The biggest opponent down the line is the Rams, of course. Russell Wilson, he continues to lead the league in passer rating. He's up over 106 now. Second best is down at 102. So he has a nice margin. For what it's worth, I think the all-time in real life mark is up over 120. So it's not historical levels, but as far as this set goes, he's well above the rest at 106. Now, Arizona falls to 2-8, and looks like even winning out in the NFC may not be. There's Harlan. Hey, Harlan, welcome.
Hello, guys.
Tim and I so far on. We're taking a look at last week. Just starting on that Thursday night game, Arizona-Seattle. And for Arizona falling even winning out may not be enough to make the playoffs in the NFC. And the team in real life finished 8-8. So the coach of the year tournament, I think, is now out of range for the Cardinals. Miami played Denver. Denver won 23-16. Miami had an opening drive touchdown, but from that point forward, Denver took over, despite being out-penalized 10-3. Drew Lock locked in, went 28 for 40, 268, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Probably his best game of the year. Denver is now even on the year versus the in real life record. They have 2 wins to go to get the coach of the year. Playoffs, kind of a long shot at 4-6, but still in range. We'll take a look at the AFC top to bottom later. But 4-6, it's a long shot, but possible. Miami now falls to 2-6, 3 games off their 10-6 in real life pace. So the Dolphins have a lot of work to do in the second half to get back up to where they were in real life. The Chargers beat the Jets. Those are my Chargers. Herbert threw for 333, 4 TDs, no picks. 6 in a row now for the Chargers after their 0-4 start. That's 3 above the in real life pace of the Chargers through 11 weeks. And 2 wins away from coach of the year.
And 6 wins in a row.
6 wins in a row. Tied now for the AFC West lead. Of course, the Chiefs have the tiebreak with their win over the Chargers. The Chargers were perfect on 4th down again this week. And we lead the league in 4th and short conversions with 8 on 10 attempts.
So what changed after week 4 for you that got you rolling? Doing differently, or?
That's a good question.
The last 3 weeks we've definitely been running more. And that's more a function of what the defensive cards were versus those opponents, and also watching overuse carefully on the receivers. You come into a game like this week's against Buffalo, it's an upgraded card set for a team across the board versus the last 3-4 weeks. So it's going to be tougher to run against them. But I think moving to more run, despite the fact that we didn't really have the offensive run card, sort of hoping to get the 4, 5, 6 on the white die, and it's come up enough to actually draw some run calls by the defense, which was non-existent through the first 4 weeks. And those run calls, in reality, don't make a difference when you're rolling 4, 5, 6.
Anybody can run the ball against the Cowboys. They roll 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, and there's a good number. I'm going to call it half the set that you can really run against if you're getting the right white die rolling, no matter who has it, no matter what running cards you're working with. The Jets now still looking for a win. Flacco started in this game versus the Chargers for an injured Darnold. Darnold is back this week, so that's good news for the Jets. It sounds sort of like a weird sentence. Good news, Darnold is back, but he is, and that'll help the Jets out. And they're facing the Dolphins this week. We'll talk about that later. That's probably the best chance the rest of the schedule for the Jets. Detroit went to Carolina, won 25-18. Carolina tied it in the fourth quarter, but Jesse James scored with 5 minutes left, and that gave Detroit the win. Detroit's now at 5-5, and certainly in the hunt for a playoff berth, and just 1 win away from Coach of the Year. So Detroit playing real well. We thought that might be the case in the preview broadcast of the divisions, but that offense is just strong. They can run, they can pass. If you have a good battery at quarterback and halfback guys, and that's
right.
Carolina now 3-8, but just 1 game off pace and 3 wins away from a Coach of the Year berth. Bridgewater, interestingly, led the league in pass attempts this week with 54, which has moved him up to second in the league in pass attempts out of nowhere. I don't think he was even on the charts a few weeks ago. Now he's second in pass attempts.
Wow.
And Mike Davis, interestingly, now second in receptions. And he led the league in receptions this week. So Carolina passing their way around here, but didn't turn out for a win versus Detroit. Cleveland at home beat Philadelphia 31-20. Tim, you broadcast that game. It was a 1-point game in the fourth, but Chubb scored 2 TDs in that final quarter to lift the Browns to the win.
Wentz started turning the ball over. That turned him of the game.
Wentz turnovers was the difference.
Cleveland now 6-4, just a game out in the AFC North. They're right in the middle of the wild card race. They're 1 game off pace, and they need 6 big wins for Coach of the Year. So you got to think that Tom's, none of us play for Coach of the Year playoffs. We just play to win, and the chips fall where they may. But it looks like it's the playoffs are bust pretty much for the Browns unless they can run a bunch of wins off here. Philadelphia now has dropped their last 2 in a row to fall 4-6, which is still good for second in the NFC East. 2 out from the Giants. 1 game.
Have a tough schedule coming up the next 3 weeks. Philadelphia does. I think they got Seattle, Green Bay, and New Orleans.
And Cleveland has a division loss against all 3 of his division foes, so Tom really needs to keep his win total heading north. For that reason, he's going to have a little trouble in those division tiebreaks.
Yeah, and he's going to have to win those rematches, right?
Yep, that's right.
1 by 1, pick them off.
It's going to be a real good fight there.
If Sanders, who I guess has been injured, as you guys said, I think he now qualifies for the league leader stats because he's number 1 now in yards per carry at 7.6 yards per carry.
And that just went up in his game. Yeah, he was he had a real good game the other day.
It's 1 full yard ahead of Henry at 6.6, which isn't too shabby either, by the way. Pittsburgh Jacksonville. Pittsburgh won 25-6. Pitt led the whole way, but I watched that game. It was tight. Really, with the difference maker, Jacksonville's 21% red zone efficiency.
Wow.
Is the key for the Steelers to maintain their lead throughout the game.
One interesting thing about Pittsburgh is how often Roethlisberger carries the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He rushed the ball 76 times this year. I don't know how that would have compared to his real life stats, but yeah,
yeah. For whatever reason, I don't know what his fumble is. It's a really good question. If he has a low fumble, that can make some sense, and certainly if he's seeing a lot of keying, that can make a lot of sense. Not sure that he is though. Pitt's now 7-3, alone in the AFC North with the lead, and atop the conference along with Patriots. However, interestingly, they're still 3 games off pace at 7-3 because, as we probably all remember, Steelers had a 10-0 undefeated start last year before losing to the Redskins or the football team or whoever for their first loss. Deontay Johnson now leads the league in TD receptions with 10. Tim, you probably don't like that. I think you take pride in your.
Yeah, Kelsey with 9.
As you might expect from the result in this game, the Steelers lead the league in red zone defense, allowing only 59% red zone efficiency.
Wow, that's a great number.
Jacksonville now 2-8. Of course, they've already qualified for Coach of the Year, and in that tournament they'll have a really good shot because first of all, everybody gets healthy, which is an interesting wrinkle of COI, by the way, and that means Minshew, Robinson will be there, and those 2 alone can carry you to COI wins, despite the defensive woes of Jacksonville. New England beat Houston 31-21. Houston actually had a lead late in the third quarter, but New England scored the last 14 points, and that's their 3rd straight win for the Patriots. 7-3 now, again, atop the conference, atop the division. They've scored 29 or more points in 3 straight games, and a win away from Coach of the Year qualification. Now, the Patriots offense, you look at those cards, they don't scream 30 points a game at all. But they're doing it. One way they're doing it, they've had 4 punt return touchdowns so far this year.
And a stifling defense, a lot of turnovers.
Houston 4-6 now has lost 3 of their last 4, but still just 1 win away from Coach of the Year qualification. Cincy went to Washington. This is the game that Burrow got hurt last year in real life. Giovanni Bernard scored 3 yards out with 3:18 left to give him the win. Bernard also scored a 2-point conversion and really carried the team. 10 carries, 69 yards. That's a 5-game losing streak that was snapped by the Bengals, and now just a game away from Coach of the Year qualification. And that's another team where it's really important that injuries don't matter in Coach of the Year as you begin the tournament. Cincy now has lost, they lost 2 fumbles in the game that they won against Washington, and they lead the league in giveaways at 21.
Wow.
Washington is now 4-6. Again, that's good enough for second in the NFC East.
Yeah, they're 4-0 against the division opponents and 0-6 against everybody else, which is interesting.
For sure, and that can make some differences down the line. 2 games at this point is nothing, right? So they haven't played the Giants twice, have they?
I think they have, actually.
I've got it right here. Yeah.
Beat them 27-16 in New York and beat them 30-17 in Washington.
Well, that's good news, bad news. Good news that they have the tiebreak. Bad news that they can't pick up a quick game by playing them again.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Sure.
Let's see. They're 2 games above pace, which is in real life, so that's good. And they could easily win their next 3. I'm sorry, they actually won their next 3 in real life, so they're slated to win the next 3. They'll have those 3.
Pretty heavy schedule to go win in the next 3.
Well, their next opponent's not too tough.
New Orleans beat Atlanta 27-17.
Dallas. So they played.
Yeah. I would call this the game of the week. Atlanta had a lead, 17-13 at halftime. But Taysom Hill led the Saints in the second half. Outscored the Falcons 14-0.
Nice.
Win pulls the Saints up to a tie with the Falcons for the South lead. The Saints now are 6-4. They won 12 in real life. There's a lot of work to do.
John's doing a great job with that Atlanta team.
Sure is. Atlanta once again, one of the surprises in the league. But now you have a virtual 3-way tie at the top. 2 6-4 teams, and then the Bucs at 6-5. Atlanta, they're 3 games up versus real life, already qualified for COI, so it's all gravy from here, trying to position themselves for a division win or a wild card. The Chiefs fell to the Raiders 33-21. The Raiders overcame 2 Chiefs kick return touchdowns and a brief injury to Derek Carr to get the win at home. Vegas had a 5-game losing streak coming in. That snapped. 2 behind the pace, and the in real life record was 8-8. Hankins led the league in Week 11 with 3 sacks. Your Chiefs, Tim, called the 6-4, remain in first in the AFC West. The one loss of your in real life counterparts means it's playoffs or bust, of course, for the Chiefs. KC now has an eye-popping 4 kick return TDs on the year. Is that right? 4, Tim?
4 and a punt returner.
Wow.
So you had 2 kick returns in 2 different games, right? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I had 2 kick returns for a touchdown. 1 kick, I should say, and 1 punt return touchdown against the Broncos in a blowout win. And then I had the 2 kick returns from Pringle in my game the other night against the Raiders, but that didn't matter because he really destroyed me. Paul had a great game.
You had 4 return touchdowns in 1 game against the Broncos?
No, 2 against the Broncos and 2 against the Raiders.
Okay.
But shoot, if that's believable, you could have told me that. I said, oh, okay.
Yep.
So any more thoughts on that game, Tim, as we close the book on it?
No, just give Paul credit, man. He really stifled me.
Yeah, I thought there was some great play call in there by Paul.
Yep.
Offensively and defensively. Baltimore beat the Titans 23-10. The Ravens defense and running game picked up pieces from a subpar Ravens passing effort. So Jackson didn't really do it in the air, but he did do it on the ground, and his teammates did it on the ground. Baltimore never trailed in the 23-10 home win. 6-4 now for Baltimore. The win keeps them 1 game out of first place in Pittsburgh and right in the mix of the AFC playoff race. The Ravens won 11 games in real life, and again, they're at 6 right now. 6-4 for the Titans. They've dropped 3 straight, but despite losing those 3, they remain tied for the top of the AFC South, along with Indianapolis. The Titans.
Who are the 3 teams that beat them, if you're looking at it?
2 teams that beat them
consecutively.
Let's take a look. Wrong team, Tennessee. So they lost, of course, to Tennessee, to Indianapolis the week before, and then the Chicago loss.
Yep. Okay. Well,
and we'll preview the rematch in the second, Tennessee Indianapolis, coming up this week. Dallas beat Minnesota 45-42, 1,000 yards in the game. Harlan.
Yeah.
Just under that. Came down to the final drive. Cowboys were down 4 points. Elliott scored with a minute left. Held on for the win.
Yeah, and there he lost a fumble on that drive that was overturned by a penalty, so we were fortunate there.
You're now 3-7. Need a bunch of wins for COY qualification, but it's still in play.
I'm on pace with the real life Cowboys last year, but they had a bunch of wins toward the end of the year, if you remember.
Yep.
And they actually had a chance to make the playoffs, but they went to New York and lost in the last game of the regular season.
Great week for Elliott. He led the league in Week 11 in rushing yards, rush attempts, and touchdowns.
wow.
I think he had 4 touchdowns altogether. 3 of them were rushing. But he's actually had a pretty good season. He had a couple of weak games, but other than that, he's been actually doing pretty good for me. I think he's only fumbled it like 3 times.
That's not bad compared to what it used to be, right?
Yeah, right.
The Vikes sit at 3-7 as well. They need to win 5 of their last 7 to qualify for COY. Cook leads the league in rushing TDs now with 12. And as Elliott led the whole world in rushing, Cousins led the whole world in Week 11 in passing with 308 passing yards. So big offensive game there, but you got the win. What's the feeling in Dallas these days going forward?
You know what? It's feeling is we need things to turn around. We still have all our division opponents left on the schedule. We lost to them our first 3 games. So if somehow, if the dice can kind of turn our way like they did a little bit against Minnesota, and we could end up winning those 3 games, we could be right back in the thick of things for the playoff race. But I don't know if I'm optimistic about that happening or not. But Washington pretty much shut us down the first time we played them. I mean, I think Zeke didn't even have 30 yards rushing that game. It was really a strong defensive performance for them. But I think Chase Young is injured, so I don't think we have to worry about facing him in this next game, which might be a little bit of a benefit for us. But I don't know. It's going to be tough to get Coach of the Year. I know that. We have to win 4 of our last 6, which is really a stretch. But
well, 4 of your three of your games are against division opponents, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you play everybody again once. So you have the second round with everybody coming.
Got to go to Baltimore. That'll be tough. Go to Cincinnati. Jeff's got them playing very well. San Francisco I haven't played in a while, but they got a pretty decent team.
So
every game's going to be tough.
In real life, Dallas did not face Burrow, as I recall. You might be facing him this time around. Without Burrow, it's tough to move the football for that team. I mean, Burrow is the key to Cincy. So if you can find a way, and it's not within your control, then if you can pick up a win there and pick up your division wins, I mean, 3 games out at this stage, I mean, it's not, it's not immediate, but the comeback trail exists,
I think we might be able to have Prescott in there for maybe 3 of the last 6 games as well. Although actually Andy Dalton's rating is better than Prescott's, but Dalton had 1 game he threw 4 interceptions. That was against Pittsburgh. That was a killer to lose that one.
Gentlemen, I hate to interject, but I just wanted to check out. I have to go pick up my kids, but thanks for doing this. I'll check the rest up later.
Sure thing.
All right.
I'll hang on for the recap, but then I got stuff I got to do too.
That last game versus Dallas looms large, versus the Giants looms large too, which is a great way to schedule breaks for you there. If you're a game out, that could do it. Green Bay went to Indy, and the Packers held off the Colts. Both offenses were hot. There was some confusion, I thought, as the half ended, as to whether the Colts had scored a TD when the game sort of crashed on them.
Yeah.
I was sort of going in and out. I couldn't get all the details there.
Both managers thought the Colts had scored a TD, but they could not relaunch the save game that would show that the touchdown was scored. But I know they both thought Indianapolis had scored a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I think Indy had ended up settling for a field goal on that drive. So at the end of the day, I don't know if it would have made the difference other than momentum-wise. It would have been different having a touchdown going in there instead of a field goal.
Well, they came within 1 score early in the third at 21-13, but the Packers came right back and made it a 2-score game sort of the rest of the way. So, might have had an impact for sure. But anyway, the Pack still has this commanding lead. Let's see how they're doing in their game here. They are up now by 10 over Chicago.
And their only loss was at Tampa Bay, and that was a 1-point loss. And they kind of blew they had a 20-point lead at once. So Green Bay is really doing well.
10-1 if they can hold on. Obviously in command of the conference and the division. Rodgers continues to lead the league in yards per attempt, large margin. He's up at 8.4. Nobody's close to that. Indy looked over and saw Tennessee lose as well. So as we mentioned before, remain on top of the AFC South. Both of those teams sort of getting helped out by each other's continued losing lately.
Yeah, that's my son-in-law Skeeter's team, and he's actually doing okay with them. That was a big win over Tennessee.
Yeah.
Prior to that, they lost to Baltimore, but he had a 5-game winning streak prior to that Baltimore loss. So they're in pretty good shape. But yeah, another big match with Tennessee though this week.
That's something you think of often, that Indy won 11 games in real life last year. I mean, I would have guessed, if you just made me guess, I would have said 9-7 or 8-8.
Right.
Not tipping my tongue. They won 11-5. That's an incredible record. Last game of the week, Los Angeles Rams went to Tampa, and it was a slugfest. The offenses just struggled to break through. It was actually pretty interesting to watch. Tom Brady finished 17 of 46. Just couldn't put drives together. And the Rams finally got momentum offensively by sort of spreading it out and attacking the zero nose tackle replacement for Vita Vea. So spreading them out, zero nose tackle, was able to get those 5 or 6 yards on the 5-9 roll on the defensive card, or was able to hit the box card, the boxes to get 12 yards. And that actually opened up the offense for the Rams. And they got some breathing room early in the fourth quarter, going up 14-3. Brady had a chance to bring them back on the last drive, but again, just could not hit passes despite the great card that he has. So the Rams are still 2 games out of Seattle, but they lead the NFC wildcard race. They have 100% red zone efficiency this past week, and they continue to lead the league in red zone efficiency at 85% for the season, which is amazing. The Rams
So are we doing the 7 playoff teams per conference, just like the NFL did last year?
Yeah, we are,
Okay.
which I didn't realize.
So that'll be interesting because that might take a couple people out of the Coach of the Year playoffs,
Yeah,
but they end up in the actual playoffs because there's another team in each conference that makes it.
sure will. And like last year, we were short of COY participants, just the way it worked out. This year, we seem to have a bunch, though. So even if the playoffs take them, we hopefully will have a healthy level of participation. A Bucs win, if they would have been able to pull it off, would have given them sole possession of first place in the NFC South. Instead, now they're effectively third place at 6-5, half game out. Looking up at the Falcons and Saints.
What was the Bucs record last year in real life?
Real life, they had a wild card, and they ended up, because New Orleans won the division, they ended up 11-5.
Okay.
So I already have 5 losses. Ronald Jones up to 3rd in the league in rushing now with 1,044 yards, but I noticed he is out this week, likely due to overuse. Interestingly.
So they're not too far off of last year's pace, so they won a bunch of games at the end last year. Looks like four in a row. It looked like.
Take a quick look at the conference while we can, both conferences. So in the NFC, Seattle and Green Bay way ahead. I said Green Bay had the lead in the conference. Of course they don't. Seattle 10-0 has the lead, but the Packers hot on their heels. That would be a very interesting playoff game down the line.
Yeah.
And all those games would be interesting. It's just great cards for New Orleans and Tampa too.
It's pretty bunched up there between 4-6 and 6-4. There's a lot of shifting can go on there. Look at that. Yeah, both conferences really. Anyway, I got to sign off. So
okay, thanks, Harlan.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. So in the NFC, Seahawks have the West. Rams are looking at that first wild card, 8-2. In the NFC South, everybody's bunched up. A lot to be decided there. They're all though sort of hovering at that 6-4, 6-5 mark. So it's hard to project that you're going to see all of them make the playoffs. That extra wild card spot, of course, makes a pretty big difference. But they're going to beat up on each other a little bit too. So we'll see how it plays out here. The Giants will, of course, representing the NFC East, just like real life. Don't expect a wild card to come out of the NFC East. And then in the North, of course, Packers leading, like you said, but you have the Lions down here at 5-5, and the Bears look like they're going to drop to 4-7 right now. In the AFC, Pats and the Steelers on top at 7-3. Ravens, the Bills, the Browns, the Colts, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Titans, all with 6 wins. Incredible bunching among the top there. So with the extra wild card, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You'll see a bunch of these teams be able to make the playoffs. And it's a mad scramble right now among them. So it's too early to break down, what do you need, what do you don't need, that sort of thing. It's just too early, especially with all this bunching. But what you can see is that these teams will continue to stay bunched as they play each other very often. You can come up from behind. Bengals at 4-6. Burrow stays healthy, very much in the mix. Broncos, if they can get games like they did at a lock this week, 4-6, you're right in the hunt here. Texans knocked off a little bit lately, but let's see what they have ahead here. Detroit, that's a really interesting game among teams that are sort of just under that playoff cusp. Then Indy, Chicago, and Indy again. And Cincy and Tennessee. So as you can see, they're playing 1, 2, 3 games against those teams that they're looking up on. for the playoff race, or are tied with. Count Cincy there as well. Interesting road there. Raiders fell off a bit the last few weeks, but a really big win against Kansas City gets them right back in it. That was really a must-win. I think when you sort of had the final analysis on the Raiders, that was a really important win. Now they're in the mix. At 3-7 would have been more difficult to find a pathway, but there's pathways at 4-6 for sure. Dolphins, obviously, not in a good spot at 3-7 with all those teams up above them, but with all that bunching above, wouldn't count anybody out at a 3-7 mark. So let's look ahead to week 12, where we have Washington and Dallas facing each other. Just had a little conversation with Harlan about the matchup. Dallas needs to start winning. They need to start winning fast. At 3-7, they're obviously put themselves in a disadvantaged spot, but the schedule gives you these opportunities. A Washington win, Philly and Giants to end the season. 3 games can be made up. 3 games can absolutely be made up between the Cowboys here at 3-7 and the Giants at 6-4. None of these teams are carded particularly well. Any of them can be subject to sort of long losing streaks. Dallas has the best offense in the bunch. It could certainly happen. Washington tend not to talk about it much because the offense isn't there, but the defense is there. So very important game, a sort of a survival game for both, you could say. It's not must-win for either. Maybe it's more must-win for Dallas, of course, with their record, but Washington can actually sustain a loss and come back. Houston travels to Detroit. Just touched on this one. Really interesting matchup of teams that are sort of sitting in the just below the middle levels of the conference, of each of their conferences. Houston right here, 4-6. And Detroit, 5-5. Detroit's positioned pretty well for a playoff spot. If the NFC South can beat up on each other, this is an opportunity for a W. Houston tough, though. 2 really good quarterbacks, 2 well-carded quarterbacks going at it. Giants travel to Cincinnati. And, I have the injuries here, but what's interesting about the injuries is that they don't include overuse. So, you can talk about what the injury report says, but you really have to download every single pre-file to know who's going to be out. Really going to be out for each game. In this game, Giants won in real life. It was the first game for Cincy without Burrow. I believe they will have Burrow this week, and that makes it a tougher challenge for these Giants. Giants are in a position where they could run away with the NFC East. Doesn't seem likely they can do it, though, with the cards that they have, but didn't seem likely they get to this point with their 6-4 record. Chicago, Green Bay, see if it's a final. Not final yet. 41-27 Green Bay right now. Chicago trying to put together a comeback. They have the ball in Green Bay territory. So far, Green Bay's racked up 500 yards in the game, 8.7 yards to play. That's outstanding. Rodgers, 10.5 per attempt. Increasing his already league-leading yards per attempt stat. And doing it mostly for the year, 411 yards. Aaron Jones, 9 carries, 6 yards. Interesting. I'm sure he didn't get injured or something. Probably didn't, but just take a quick look. Oh, he is. Okay, we'll be back. We'll be back for next week. So he got injured at some point during this game, but not out for multiple weeks, importantly for the Pack. Kansas City, Tampa Bay. Isn't this an interesting matchup? I had checked this pre-file. As noted earlier, Ronald Jones will not be available for Tampa. So it's Fournette and company running for the Bucs. So that's a really important injury, though. If you look at the cards of both these teams, Tampa has the advantages of the cards. The only disadvantage really is on kickoffs, where Kansas City has the best kickoff returner in set, and Tampa has the worst coverage. Other than that, Tampa really has it in the cards here, but Ronald Jones' injury could be an equalizer. That is something to watch as Kansas City travels to Tampa Bay. In real life, as most of us remember, Kansas City came back in the last minute and won this game. San Fran traveling to Los Angeles. Los Angeles trying desperately to keep pace with Seattle, paddling hard, keep up with their undefeated division mate. Need to win this one. San Fran at 5-5. It's in the cards here for LA. They need to hold serve. They need to wait out these Seahawks and see if the Seahawks can lose a game or two before facing each other again later in the season. New Orleans travels to Denver. Denver with a big win, with a big performance from Locke this week. Can he keep it going? Taysom Hill started for New Orleans last week. Breeze is not on the injury report, so that means he's probably out for overuse, which means we'll probably see him again this week starting, I would assume. So with Breeze, this is a game that New Orleans should win in a very competitive NFC South. Can't lose games where the cards sort of give you that clear advantage. Carolina going to Minnesota. Carolina now eyeing up a COY berth. Has an opportunity here against another team that is sub 500. Can they muster the win? Been passing often lately with Bridgewater. Minnesota gave up a lot of running yards last week to Dallas. One of the games of the week is Tennessee at Indianapolis, the rematch. 2 weeks ago, Indianapolis defeated Tennessee. Take a look at the AFC South. Both tied 6-4. In the first game, 36-22 Indy. 382 to 269 in yards. Yards per play, though, Tennessee had the advantage. So, time of possession. Indianapolis, therefore, had a pretty big lead, and there it is, 35-24. Tannehill threw 2 big interceptions. Henry had a 48-yard gain, but otherwise was around 20 carries for 50 yards. 40 yards. So bottled up most of the way, except for that long run. Indy has an excellent run defense. Pretty good matchup as far as Indianapolis is concerned, given the strength of their run defense. If Derrick Henry can find his card guess wrong, well, all bets are off, of course. Definitely one to watch this week. Probably the game of the week. Miami traveling to New York. The Jets searching for their first win. Let's take a look at the Jets schedule. Mentioned earlier, this is probably the Jets' best chance. After that, they face a very potent offense with the Raiders. The Jets were able to stare down a very similar offense with Kansas City. So, of course, there's a chance there, too. Seattle will be a tough one for the Jets. The Rams will be a real tough one for the Jets. Cleveland. More of a running team. The Jets have a pretty good run defense with a 6 nose tackle. So there might be opportunities there for the Jets. And then New England, they've been scoring points. But it is an offense that when you have Donnie guessing, as he can often guess really well with that defense, could make it a low-scoring game where it becomes anybody's game or a game that comes down to the last possession. So plenty of opportunities there. But the way Miami's cards are and the way they've been playing lately, might see Tua. That might be a good chance there. Miami needs to get back on the comeback trail here. 3-7, long way to go, long hill to climb. So Miami can do it. Have good defense. Fitzpatrick's second in the league in pass rating. I don't know if he'll be playing in this game, though. Cleveland traveling to Jacksonville. Look out for Jacksonville. Jacksonville was in a position to make it a neck-and-neck game versus Pittsburgh. Just couldn't get it over the goal line. So Cleveland cannot take this one for granted. I know they won't. Chargers travel to Buffalo. Chargers on that 6-game winning streak, second longest in the league behind Seattle, of course. It's going to be threatened here in Buffalo. Chargers have had the advantage in the cards the last couple weeks. Really not the case here. I looked at them, as you can imagine. So, slightly better passer with Buffalo, slightly better runner, slightly better defense, slightly better pass rush. It's not a big margin, but it's a margin across the board. So the Chargers are going to have to get creative and overcome some things. And playing in Buffalo makes a difference as well. Means you're going to you have a bigger price to pay when you blitz your safety. And when you're a long passing team like the Chargers are, when you hit that long gain, you don't get as many yards. Very important game, though, in the AFC, that is. Because both teams, the matchup of one of those 6-4 matchups. Buffalo 6-4, Chargers 6-4. Talk about those 6-4s beating up each other going forward. Well, here's one of those games. Raiders go to Atlanta. Every game important for Atlanta. Another team paddling so hard and doing so well to stay right in the mix with two outstanding teams, the Saints and the Buccaneers. Going to face a pretty potent offense in the Raiders. Atlanta handled Denver already as they work their way through the AFC West. But this will be the second meeting that the Chargers and the Chiefs come later. So Atlanta started with a 4th place team in the AFC West. Now they're facing the 3rd place team. Then they'll face the 2nd and the 1st later on. So sort of an upward curve in strength of schedule difficulty as they face the AFC West. And Vegas may be 3rd in the division, but they are no slouch at all. So it's going to be a real interesting battle there. I think that game goes off on Tuesday night. Arizona, traveling to New England. Arizona's been struggling. New England has not been struggling. It's one thing that the Stratomatic cards don't care about, your mood or your team's mindset, or whether they're tired or not. Well, the cards don't get tired. So knowing that going in, New England has to be careful here. Arizona's capable. Finished 8-8 last year in real life. Cards are there. Coach is there. Just because it's a 7-3 versus a 2-8 team does not mean that much in Stratomatic, that past record. What matters is the cards, the dice, and the decisions the coaches make. This one could be close. Baltimore travels to Pittsburgh. Huge game in the AFC North, as it always is. Top 2 teams, 7-3 Pittsburgh, 6-4 Baltimore. If Baltimore has any designs on the division, this is the game they need to win. Pittsburgh won the first game, 14-13. Connors, 2-point conversion. As the game came to an end. A roll of the dice by Pitt. Paid off, gave him the win, and gives him a really important edge heading into this matchup. A win here from the Steelers will make it a very, very, very difficult hill for the Ravens to climb. Not only would it affect the Ravens' division prospects, but you don't want to head toward the lower half of that bunch of AFC teams that right now are not at 6-4. Seattle traveling to Philly. Philly at 4-6. Thought it was certainly a coin flip sort of game it was versus the Browns. Didn't work out. Now this game is not so much a coin flip. Philly has a hill to climb against Seattle. Outcarded in many ways. Can they find a way to win? As far as Seattle goes, Philly, then the Giants are after that, and the Jets after that. So, from a card standpoint, this is a set of 3 very winnable games for the Seahawks. Philly's been able to pull out some wins so far. They're doing better than in real life. And that is week 12. Interesting week. Look forward to watching the games. Thanks for watching this, everybody. Good luck. And we'll see you soon.